And here we are, further into this thing than I ever could have imagined. I wasn't sure if we would ever even make episode 1, and here we are, starting episode 5. Good morning, Brother Cole. How are you, my friend?
I am good. Celebrating St. Patrick's Day today with a little horror.
Hootie Who. And just to shake it up a little bit for you guys, if you did not see our messages earlier this week, we teased you last episode with some hints, and we changed the game. We're not doing that movie. We're actually doing another movie. So you may be thinking, I bet they're going to do The Leprechaun. Think again. That would be too obvious, and that movie blows horse. So we're actually going to cover 1986's Critters in honor of Shudder's new series, Critters the New Binge, starting on March 21st. This little delight is rated PG-13, directed by Stephen Herek, written by Dominic Muir, and starring D. Wallace, Emmet Walsh, and Billy Greenbush. That's actually Billy Green Bush, but if you put Green and Bush in the same name, you're going to be Greenbush. Emmet Walsh actually has starred in a ton of movies and TV shows. If you've been watching movies for any length of time, especially those from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you will have seen Mr. Walsh in many of them. Fantastic actor, and he plays a great little part in this movie as well as the sheriff. You will also see Billy Zane in his typical douchey role as Steve, the boyfriend. We can only thank God at this point that it's a very small part. Fuck Billy Zane. Let's take a quick listen to the interesting little trailer for this movie. Have a quick listen.
Of all the planets in the galaxy, they chose ours. They hide in small places.
This phone is dead.
What?
They light the dark.
Jay, any luck?
Just a minute.
There's nothing cute about them. They've come a long way, and they're hungry. Critters. They bite.
Just an interesting little trailer on this one. I really enjoy it. And this isn't meant to be a knock on the movie, but the trailer actually portrays a better movie than what you actually get. But sometimes that's the case. That's their job after all. But I would definitely go see the movie had I not been 1 year old when this trailer was first released. So I actually own this little gem, but I haven't played it in a long time. It's on DVD, my copy of it, and I did have to knock a little bit of dust off to get it to play. It would not play my PlayStation 4. A high quality machine like that just isn't going to take any old disc you put in it. So I did have to watch that in my upstairs player. But I will say this about that. Compared to the last episode, Creepshow, there isn't a whole lot to this one, to be completely honest. Basically, some little strange hairy balls named Krites escape from their prison on a meteor. There's this disgusting little skin bag dude in a wheelchair with a colostomy bag. He sends bounty hunters to go find them. Hyper jump to Earth. There's a little boy living on a farm with his family. They're just, fixing tractors, blowing shit up, just living the life. And then these assholes show up. before we even know what's going on, Cal's dead. They take Billy Zane out. Thank God. It's never too quick for that. And then the bounty hunters show up. So these two slimy characters that can shapeshift are bounty hunters. They come down to Earth. One of them turns into a pop star of all things, and the second one, weird, doesn't want to change. He's being a little rebel, so he ends up being he shapeshifts from a dead cop to a minister, and then finally the more polished version of the town weirdo. Back at the farm, the family at this point has encountered the Krites, and good old Dad's nearly been eaten to death by the little buggers. But young Brad Brown is going to set off on his own to save the family. So, of course, he runs into our fearless bounty hunters. They come back and save the day, but not before the Krites destroy the family homestead. I would say that just about sums it up. What say you?
Yeah, this Critters is Critters came out in a time where they were doing a lot of Critter style movies. I mean, you had Gremlins in '84, Ghoulies in '85, Critters '86, and then Munchies in '87. So it was definitely the era of little alien creatures, and all those came on the heels of E.T. coming down, which is funny because Dee Wallace, who played the mother in Critters, also played the mother in E.T.
Right. And rumor has it that she has returned for a new top secret project that the Sci-Fi Channel has made. I believe it was in South Africa where they shot it. But typical of Sci-Fi, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, because Shudder has already completed the first season of the new binge, and we probably should have just left it at that, because 9 times out of 10, if it's a Sci-Fi original, Sci-Fi plays some pretty good programmings. At one point, WWE SmackDown was on that channel, as well as some other good shows. But if it's originally produced content, it's usually terrible. And so Critters is already on the fine line of campy and stupid. So Sci-Fi putting their spin on it is really scary to me.
Yeah, it's gonna end up being like Sharknado 4.
Yeah, with way too much CGI. You know what the problem is with Sci-Fi? The Sci-Fi Channel is they're obviously a multi-million, probably $100 million company, but their CGI looks like it came from like the high school AV club. It's fucking terrible, and I hate CGI to begin with. But if you're gonna use it, it needs to be on point. I mean, even The Walking Dead, everybody treats that like the sacred goat of horror, but even that show has some pretty weak CGI. But even their CGI is better than the bullshit that you see on the Sci-Fi Channel. So anyway, back to Critters and the lovable little Krites. Yeah. I don't know exactly how I feel about this movie. I think it's one of those movies that everybody just thinks that they've seen, maybe, or just claims that they've seen, but then they watch it and they realize that they haven't seen it, which is why we wanted to kind of cover it the way that we covered it this week, just as a way to get you ready for the big show later this week on Shudder.
Yeah, I think that's because when you watch Critters, it's not one of those movies that you're like, you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, that was awesome. It's one of those ones that you watch, you're like, oh, that was good, and then you leave the theater, you turn it off, and 2 days later, you're not even thinking about it anymore. It's like it doesn't have like a real big impact. I mean, it's a good movie to watch, but it's not one that really impacts you enough that you retain everything about it. I think that's why people are like, I think I saw that back then, but because I was the same way before I rewatched it for us doing this podcast. Seen it years ago, but I was like, yeah, I remember something about some critters and they turn into a ball and yada yada. I couldn't remember like the details of the movie, but I will say this. The only part that I was like, this is dumb, is the fact that, okay, so the Brown family lives on a farm, and I have a lot of family farms, and when Papa Brown goes down and the wife and son have to take over the shotgun duties, they act like they've never seen a shotgun in their life, and I can tell you right now, if they're man, woman, or child on the farms that I grew up on, they all know how to use a shotgun. And I think me and you can both agree that if this was the other Brown family that we know out of Alaska, there would have been no problem
Yes.
getting those critters going.
Because they're just so extreme. I mean, if you would have, I mean, except for Noah, because he's a little bit of a film. But you know, if you'd have put a shotgun in the hand of Bear Brown, hell, if you would have put the shotgun in the hands of young Rain Brown, we would have been seeing a completely different story. We wouldn't have needed a couple of greasy, slimy bounty hunters. The sickening statistics for this universe-jumping joy are 2 human corpses, 1 mutilated wannabe E.T. doll, 1 pet fish down the drain, 1 dead bull, 8 dead crates, 1 pair of shape-shifting bounty hunters, and about 5 minutes too many of screen time for Billy Zane. You still have time to watch this prize before the new series starts, but after listening to this, I think that you'll be just fine without it. The gore score for this one is a 3. A lot of emphasis was put on keeping this movie PG-13. In fact, too much emphasis. I don't think that more people would have watched it if it was PG-13, PGG, not rated, whatever. It could have just been an R, and it might have been a little bit better. With the PG-13 rating, the gore definitely suffered. And now for the realities of horror. Cole, learn us something.
All right, so for the realities of horror, this episode, I was decided after watching it, when Jay and Brad Brown go out to see what the ruckus was out in the field, they discover a mutilated cow, and that reminded me of one of my favorite strange occurrences that happened in Kansas back in 1975. A couple discovers one of their cows dead. Its udders and genitalia had been surgically removed and had a hematoma on its head. Also, a calf's eye had been strategically removed and the optic nerve cauterized. And this was happening, and this wasn't just one occurrence. I mean, this happened all across Kansas, and it was so bad that they even had to bring the FBI in to do an investigation on it. I mean, it was really widespread. And what's crazy is that this was going on when they would go to investigate these occurrences. There would be no tracks, there would be no blood, there would be nothing. It was done so cleanly and without kind of evidence that the FBI never did even figure out what was doing it, you know. But let's be real, if this FBI investigation was in like Project Blue Book, it was a sham. So
yes, but it makes me wonder though, you know, I'm sure it's not like your average Joe Blow field agent getting sent out to a case like this, you know. So I'm sure they have people specifically trained and positioned to go and look at cases so odd, you know, very similar to TV's favorite supernatural sci-fi couple.
Yeah, and what's funny is on the very first episode of X-Files, they actually, when Scully and Mulder first meet, he shows her pictures of cows that had their blood drained, that were found in a field and stuff. So, but I mean, this didn't just happen in the 70s. I mean, you take it all 2016, Central Kansas. December 18th, a bull was killed in Harvey County. The bull's genitals were removed by precise cuts. Could have been somebody wanting a quick snack, but I mean, I don't know why you'd waste the whole bull. Then on January 1st, John Shearer and his wife Carla were out feeding their cattle in McPherson County, and they found a pregnant cow dead with one of her eyes harvested, including the eyelid, both bottom and top eyelashes removed. And the veterinarian that examined the cow said it was done with laser, but yet, again, there was no tracks. And to get a laser machine out there to do this, but you know, they don't just happen here in the U.S. either. I mean, the same kind of things, you know, not only in Kansas and Colorado, but also happen in South America. So what's strange, they don't leave any tracks behind and all this, you know. I just don't understand how you get that kind of equipment out there without, you know, flying in. So
it's got to be Aliens.
Oh yeah.
Which leads me to my next point. If you did not see on Instagram earlier this week, we did update our cover art. We didn't update it so that we could add sci-fi, but while we were updating it, we did go ahead and add sci-fi. So we will start covering a few more sci-fi movies. Actually, our next episode is going to focus a little bit more on sci-fi. We've got a little bit of an in-betweener that we're going to do for you guys, which will inevitably lead us to doing a little bit more in the sci-fi genre. Cole, I've got a question for you. What you streaming?
Well, this was interesting. I was doing some research for an episode today, and I started out streaming Horror Hotel. Horror Hotel is an indie web series that they turned into a movie. It's made up of several short movies. It's a very, very low budget film, but problem was, man, it was looked like it was made like if you took a high school AV club and the theater department and you had to make a movie.
Oh Lord.
This is what you got. And it was bad. I couldn't even finish it in one sitting, but I thought, I can't give an appropriate review if I don't do it. I'll watch the whole thing, and I finished it, and it wasn't even worth the review. It made Trilogy of Terror look like an Oscar nominee. So
it sounds like what you're telling me is that it's going to be airing on Sci-Fi this summer.
Yes, one of the stories was called Alien Stole My Boyfriend, so it was an atrocity of a movie. So instead of doing that, I decided to go with Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's a new movie on Netflix.
Good choice.
Yeah, starring Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch. Martin Sheen was originally supposed to star as Tommy, but dropped out, and Brian Cox stepped in, which I'm glad of because I'm a big fan of Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch. So it's basically a father-son duo. Coroners examine the body of a Jane Doe that reveals some dark, evil secrets. It's a really good movie. It's got a lot of twists and turns, and the whole movie was good. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I really if I'm going to watch a movie, I don't like to read the reviews before I watch it. I don't like to get anybody's opinion, but after I watched it, I kind of see what everybody else was saying about it. In fact, Stephen King said that the Autopsy of Jane Doe was visceral horror to revival Alien and early Cronenberg. Watch it, but not alone. So yeah, if you.
Oh wow, that's a pretty good review coming from Stephen King. But I feel like, and this is kind of across the board, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more during Creeper in the Theater. Yes, we are bringing that delectable delight back, but I'll get into it a little bit more during that. But I just feel like, and I don't think that it's necessarily just the horror genre, but there's just a lot of stroking going on. And if you listen to everything that Stephen King says, dude, there's a reason that you're a writer, so that you don't have to open your freaking mouth. But he always says shit like that, this is the scariest movie I've ever seen. I'm like, Broseph, you are the horror writer of the 20th and 21st century guy. You don't have to stroke people, so just stop. Because I've seen him say that about a lot of movies, and they're just not what he says that they are. It's just a little bit overblown at this point. He said something similar to the new Pet Sematary, and I'm not doubting that that's going to be a great movie. In fact, spoiler alert, but we're actually going to do a Pet Sematary episode for episode 7, which will be in 2 episodes from now. And so I'm not doubting that that's going to be a great movie, but he said some kind of similar bullshit about that too. It's terrifying, or don't watch it alone. Dude, come the fuck on, settle down.
Yeah, this movie here. It wasn't it wasn't terrifying. I watched it alone, obviously, but it was just really good. I liked the story in it. The story in it was really good. Had a lot of twists and a lot of stuff to figure out, and that's the kind of movie I like. So I really enjoyed this movie, so I would give this one a high score on my rating list for sure.
Right on. I be streaming Eli Roth's History of Horror. This was originally an AMC show. I'm not sure if they're going to do a second season. It aired late last year on AMC, but now it's streaming on Shudder. So you can check that out if you have Shudder. And if you don't have Shudder at this point, what the fuck's wrong with you? It's $3.99 a month. You can also get a free trial. But the History of Horror is really good. It kind of breaks down subgenres within the horror genre. I watched 2 episodes last night. They were very good. Had a lot of experts on there. Had Rob Zombie, Tom Savini. I mean, just everybody. Kane Hodder. I mean, just all kinds of great people. There's a little bit heavy on the Walking Dead praise, but I mean, whatever. AMC gonna do AMC. But it's all in all, it's a good show. I would definitely say go check it out. That brings us to Creeper in the Theater, big guy. This episode, we're going to talk about Jordan Peele's Us. So, Us is releasing on March 22nd. Doing a little bit of research about it. Because again, first one to tell you, first one to admit it, I'm not a major fan of modern horror. When researching the movie and trying to figure out what it's about and what people think about it, it's got a really high score on Rotten Tomatoes, which means jack shit. But it's pretty easy to have such high ratings when the title of some of your reviews are, I quote, Winston Duke and Jupita, excuse my pronunciation, looked so cute at the screening of Us, and it just made my day. So that's how we're reviewing shit now? Like that qualifies an awesome movie, that 2 people looking cute together at a screening? I mean, like, is this what we can expect from now on? I hope so, because the more crap like this that gets submitted to your eyes and ears will just make it more easy for us to do what we do. Mm-hmm. Anyway, IMDb be slacking like always, but this is their synopsis. A family's serenity turns to chaos when a group of doppelgangers begins to terrorize them. I would suggest that you do not listen to me or their little synopsis and just check out this trailer.
You know how sometimes things line up? Coincidences? Since we've been up here, they've been happening more and more. It's like there's this black cloud hanging over us.
There's a family in our driveway.
Who is that?
Run.
What are you people?
It's us.
Rated R.
I was shitting all over this movie up until the point that I watched the trailer. Like, my drawers were down and I was taking a large excrement on this movie. Now I really want to see it. My only issue remains with this movie, and it's not Jordan Peele's fault, but people are like getting really overhyped and overexcited about this cat. I have seen it said on the cover of quote unquote credible news sources that he is the modern master of horror, that he's the future of horror. Let's be honest, okay? Let's just break it down real simple, a non-biased discussion. He's released 1 movie. 1. The Golden Globes thought that this movie was a comedy. It's a horror movie. Then he did a reimagining of Twilight Zone. Okay. Didn't watch it, but okay. Us isn't even out yet. And now it's rumored that he's making another remake. Masters don't make remakes. And if you disagree with that, that's okay. But this is my second point to that. For about 10 years, you all were saying that M. Night Shyamalan was a master of horror. Get the fuck out of here with that. Where is he now? Final verdict, though, I will definitely watch Us. It looks like a really good movie. Just, again, in a nutshell, if we could stop talking about the nonsense and stop trying to make everybody the next best thing, the next master, the next this, the next that, genius, powerful, brave, all these other bullshit hot button terms, and just let the dude make his art and then we'll judge him based on that, we would be so much better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I saw the trailer for this movie, and I didn't see the first Get Out. I didn't see that. It didn't look like something I'd be interested in. I watched this one. It looks like it could be a good movie, but to be honest, I probably won't go. It didn't pique my interest enough to go see it.
Yeah, I'm not going to go see it in theaters, but I'll get it on Redbox. For the next episode, we're actually going to use the same teaser that we used last week. Like I said, it is going to be us dipping our toes into sci-fi. It's an in-betweener. It could be an action movie. It could be a sci-fi movie. It could even be a horror movie. But the hint is, what does the WWE and John Carpenter's The Thing have in common? The only way you're going to find out is if you listen to the next episode. Well, I think it's about that time. Take a drink and celebrate the death of St. Patrick. So on that note, we must say goodbye. If you have any comments or feedback, please drop us a note at downrightpodcast@gmail.com. And you can keep up with all of our shenanigans, as always, if you follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Downright Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you more than you know. Adios.
Take it off the air now, please.
Get in.
Nope. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.